Hey, board gamers, BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, back with another episode of Gumbo Live, the number one Facebook Live talk show dedicated to board gaming. Jason, that's because we're still the only Facebook Live board game show, but that's okay. We're holding on to it. Our special guest tonight, Jason Bice of B Team Games. They got a new game on Kickstarter today called Loot the Body. We're going to talk about that. And he's a former guy that lived in Louisiana, so we might be talking gumbo tonight. It's getting a little chilly outside here in Louisiana. Hit me up on social media, Twitter at Board Game Gumbo, or on Facebook at facebook.com/BoardGameGumbo, or you can always send me an email, boardgamegumbo@gmail.com. Jason, a couple of show notes before we begin. On the blog side, which is a proud member of Punchboard Media, we published an inside look at Legends of Sleepy Hollow that's got some spoilers in it. So if you want to know, there's a couple days left on that Kickstarter if you want to check that out. And also, just recently, we talked about your game, Loot the Body, the game we're going to feature today. I talked about our experiences with the old version. Jason's going to talk about version 2.0 tonight. On the video side, we got two great episodes you might want to check out. We got a close look at Bushido, a new battle card game from Gray Fox Games that my buddy Alex Goldsmith has been demoing around the country. And we had a fantastic visit with Krewe. You know him from the Opinionated Gamers. He's back from Essen Spiel, and he went through 4 or 5 or 6 of his favorite games and answered a lot of people's questions. So check that out. Hey, enough show talk. Jason, let's get right to the games, man. Welcome to Gumbo Live. It is great to have you here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. It's been an exciting day.
Yeah, that's right. Big day for you. At 9 o'clock this morning, it went live. We're going to be talking about Loot the Body. But before we do that, for people that don't know you, give us a little elevator. You know what an elevator pitch is because you're a designer. Sure. Give us the elevator pitch of Jason Bice and B Team Games.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've gotten into game design just after being so interested in board games, having a chance to do some demo work at different conventions. Started designing games a couple of years ago. Actually, with my daughter, we would put some pieces together and kind of make up our own rules, and decided we really enjoyed it. And got to designing bigger and bigger games. And at this point, we've been working on Loot the Body for about a year and a half since I woke up with most of the rules in my head from a dream, and furiously wrote them down on the day I was supposed to be going to close on my house. Made my wife furious, but I'm glad I did it. And since then we've just been working towards that, building up B Team Games, being a part of the community.
Jason, right before the show started, you and I were talking about demoing games. And I know you've been working for a long time with Yellow Games on a lot of their games. Has being on that side of the fence, being on the demo side, because you and I share that, I do a lot of demo games for different companies. How has that affected your design process and your design thoughts? How has it influenced you?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So I would say the biggest influence hasn't been so much on the design side as it has been on the business side. I've had an opportunity to talk with the execs at Yellow, to have dinners with the execs of other board game companies, and really just get down to the nitty gritty about the game industry and really take a look at how it works and what to expect, which isn't something that you can always get from blogs and just reading materials online. So that's been an amazing experience. From a design standpoint, having an opportunity to talk with the people that are picking the games for Yellow, their R&D team, and talk with some of the other companies and what they're looking for, has really changed the way that I do some world building, changed some of my processes for prototyping and play testing, those types of things. Because I'll be honest, like most game designers, I've made some stinkers before. I've made some things that I thought, okay, well, that's okay. And then talking with people in the industry, it gives you a much better idea of, okay, well, what are they really expecting in the industry for us to have something that's going to be a winner?
You spent a lot of time here in the South. You said you were born in Louisiana. Is that right?
Yep. Born in Shreveport.
And where are you living now?
I'm actually just north of Atlanta at this point.
Is there any kind of Southern influences that you've thought about? I mean, there's a lot of stories. There's a unique culture down here. There's food. There's the topography. Is there anything that kind of excites you in the future about gaming?
Well, I would say that certainly the geography of the South and the slowness of things certainly affects the way that we spend time with other people, the way we do community, and really the opportunity to sit down and play something like a game. I think a lot of times in other parts of the country, people they're hurried. They may not spend as much time. They may not like longer games. I don't know if you can't see it on my shelf. I like to do D&D a lot too. So I'm really into the storytelling and character development and those types of things. And I think that's something that comes from kind of the heritage of being in just a slower moving area where we take time to look around.
We talk to so many designers. If you read any interviewers, one of the things, it's not always in every designer's pedigree, but so many designers have been game masters or DMs or just regular D&D players. Why do you think that there's an attraction or a synergy between the people that have played D&D and the guys that want to make their own games? You see girls that are going out there learning to play, D&D or even the new the 5th edition. And the first thing they think about is, how can I make this into a game? Why is that?
I'd say D&D really lends itself to getting those creative juices flowing, right? It's all about building the story together as a group. And once you get a hold of that, I can build something, I can make something in this story. You really carry that into other parts of your life, right? Whether that's game design or just the way you do day-to-day life. D&D lends itself to that creative mind, especially people that get into the world building of being a game master. And, I'm going to build these scenarios and I'm going to make this puzzle. And a lot of times that lends itself to I'm going to tell this story in a board game, or I'm going to create this challenge for people. I think they're just very closely related. They build together.
In the board gaming world, there's been this eternal debate, mechanics first, theme first. But I always look at it when I talk about this, I always forget that. I go back to what do you want to play? Not necessarily what do you want to design, because what you want to play for most designers leads into what they want to design. They want to make games they want to play, right? So you can bypass the argument by just come out and say, Jason, when you're at a game store and you're looking at a bunch of different titles, what are you looking for? Are you looking for something that's got a unique mechanic, or are you a guy that says, wow, that's an unusual theme, I'm interested in that?
Yeah. So it sounds like this question is a whole bunch of, what's that? What do I find fun? Right? Like, where's the fun? And I'm a big believer in designing towards the fun. Anything that's distracting from fun in a game, there's no reason for it to be there. I've put mechanics in games before. I've seen other people that have had mechanics in games where it's an interesting mechanic. But if the mechanic's not benefiting the fun that your players are having, let's take it out. If theme versus mechanics and all of that, what am I going to play? I'm going to look for something that's got a little bit of strategy, something where I can get involved with the characters. And at this time in my life, I've got 3 kids, and two of them are really young. And so a lot of times it's okay. Well, what do I have enough energy to put onto the table and to convince my wife to play after she's been taking care of kids all day, so that we can have a good time and not have 1,000 pieces to put away. And that's kind of where we are designing towards at the moment at B Team Games. We're really looking at that family market, people with kids. Loot the Body it's a dungeon crawl, but it's a dungeon crawl for people with families. So you can build a dungeon in 2 minutes or less. You've got your dungeon, you're ready to hop in, play a game, and hop out, have some laughs, and probably go right to bed if you've got kids, or play another one if you're up for it.
BJ from Board Game Gumbo here at Gumbo Live. We're talking with Jason Bice of BT Games. They've got a new game out on Kickstarter today, Loot the Body. And you just brought up a good point that I always love to talk about on the Gumbo. This is not heavy cardboard. Edward and Amanda do a fantastic job with talking about big games, and we'll play big games and we'll talk about them. But for the most part, this show's about family gaming. I've got a family. I've got a wife who teaches, and when she comes back home and wants to play a game, she really just wants something that's going to take her mind off of a tough day, and then knowing that she's got a limited amount of time. I got to get a fun game that's going to be set up, played, and taken down in 40 minutes, an hour, maybe an hour and a half if I'm lucky. That sounds like the design philosophy that you're looking at.
Absolutely. Some of my early attempts at designing games were bigger games. My wife has really had a huge influence on that, because I kind of go by, okay, well, what can I, because she's my main playtester, right? She playtests before anybody else. What can I get her to playtest? And her philosophy is kind of, well, if you can set it up in under 5 minutes and teach me the rules in under 30 minutes, I'm up for it. And she'll go for it. And so that's been a huge impact on the way that we are designing, the way that we're designing all of our games.
I think it was Grant Rodiak today who posted something on Twitter, and he was talking about design philosophies for the person who wants to think about getting into design. And if I'm hopefully I'm given the right attribution for it. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is Grant said on those first designs, don't think big. It's the opposite. Everybody wants to say, well, I've played all these other games. I want to bring something totally unique and something big right to the marketplace. And that way I can make my name. And there's a failure rate because it's so hard to bring a big game, number one, to fruition, number two, to a publisher, and number three, to market, that you're better off, getting your chops in by designing smaller games, or even something like an expansion to your favorite game, because the whole process of an expansion is still a design. It's play testing, and it's making sure that the people that play it are happy. Do you agree with that? Start small.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I do. It's designing a game is in its very nature an additive process, right? We're adding in this mechanic and we're seeing how it works. We're adding in this art, we're adding in this idea for what the game should do. And it's so easy to get a bloat, and it may work. What you're doing may work, but it goes back to that. Where's the fun? What do I have in there that doesn't need to be there? So I think designing small and going through several processes of simplification is incredibly important with designing. You said it earlier. You talked about, okay, well, this is Loot the Body 2.0. Man, do I wish it was 2.0. This is it's much more. It's much more like I think in my in my file system, I've got the rules listed at like 8.7. Is like the current version of the rule set, right?
Right.
And I go through and do full sets of rules and go through all kinds of playtesting for all of those versions. So it is. I mean, it's simplification. You've got to take out the things that aren't working. You've got to understand, well, who am I really marketing this to? It's not meant to be a big game. It's not meant to be something that people are going to spend hours and hours playing. I want people to sit down and have fun and play. And I think that's a really great place to start from a design standpoint.
BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, back with Gumbo Live. I've got Jason Bice. We're talking about his game Loot the Body in a little while from B-Team Games. But I am curious. You said you did some demoing for Yellow at Gen Con. We were talking about it right before the show. What's the best game experience that you've had since Gen Con? Give me a favorite game you've played since then.
Yeah. Tell you what, one of my go-tos honestly is Arcadia Quest.
Okay.
But it's a bigger game, and I can't always convince my wife to play it. I recently played Clank by Renegade.
Sure.
Renegade they've been really on top of.
They're killing it.
They are. They're absolutely killing it. They're great picks all the time. I've met Scott and Sarah Erickson that works for them. She does some amazing work as well, and just picking out what they need.
You paid base Clank or the new Clank in?
I did the original Clank is the one that I just did. I picked it up at the last Gen Con. Finally got a chance to pick it up, and like you said, like you were talking about with me earlier, not always picking up the new in box. Nothing wrong with going to that secondary market and deal.
I'm a big believer in the used game. Let somebody else punch them out, and I'll be happy to play them. Especially for a reduced price. What did you think of Clank?
Oh, I thought it was great. I enjoyed the deck building element. I thought that added enough variety into what appeared to be a much more complex game and turned out to be pretty simple. Just the whole premise of it is very straightforward. I love the variety of it, that they've got multiple boards. I think I do have the Sunken Treasure expansion. I think the fact that they've got some expansion to it, and you can build on it and make it bigger. I'm a big believer in expansions being where games should get bigger, not in the original game. Going back to that kind of design philosophy. But yeah, it's great.
I think you're gonna like Sunken Treasures. The only complaint I'd have with Clank is that if you're gonna do a deck builder, especially one that has a penalty provision in it, you should have a way to mill out or to get rid of some of the cards and the original Clank didn't really have an effective way to do that. There was one or two cards here and there. Sunken Treasures has a little bit more than that. But if you're talking about just the basic Clank, the three things that got me excited about the game, and I played it a lot since we brought it into the Gumbo. It's a favorite of the crew to Gumbo. The things that I like about it, if you're going to mix in deck building, you're going to mix in a dungeon dive, and you're going to have a really good push your luck mechanism that works well. That's three of my favorite things, and they put them together in this one, and I think they put it together pretty successfully. I like the artwork. The game can be a little bit fiddly because there's a lot of bits to it, but man, I think it's one of the most exciting games that Renegade has put out. I like it better than Cinia and a couple of ones that I played from Renegade. I'm a big fan of Clank, so I'm glad you like it. You didn't say though. Have you played it with your wife? Did she enjoy it?
She did play it, and she did enjoy it with me. I've got a pretty regular game group that I'm lucky enough to have kind of come over, whether we're doing D&D or sometimes we do board games. And we played it at our last board game as well, and she played it and she enjoyed it. So, what's
the gaming scene like over there in Atlanta or outside of Atlanta where you're from? What's it like?
Oh yeah. Well, there's a pretty thriving community here. I'm actually part of a group called the Alpharetta Guild of Geeks. They have meetup events. In fact, I was at one kind of racing to get home from one a little bit earlier, showing off Loot the Body to some folks. Yeah, no, it's no problem. We call it Shenanigan Games. It's on like Tuesday nights. 20 people get together. We all play games. We get together on Thursdays and have a meal and play games. There's stuff on Sundays, and they do bowling and all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of community in the area. There's some really great game stores in the area as well. I don't know if you've ever bought games from CLS Games. But Robert Solo, he owns CLS Games. He's here in the Atlanta area.
Is he the one that's on Board Game Geek on the Atlanta's biggest gaming warehouse?
Yep, that's him.
That the guy?
That's him.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the guy. So I
haven't, but my buddy's bought one of the guys from the Gumbo has bought games from CLS, so I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know how many hours I've spent in his basement. And when I started getting into games, I would go to his basement because he's not like a regular store. It's literally like a warehouse in his basement, which is pretty cool. And I just hang out there and just talk board games with him. And that's really when I first kind of started getting into it. Like, well, what's this game doing? Like, what's different about that game? And what mechanic? What are you excited about? And I'm excited because they partnered with us as our first retail partner as part of our retail partner program, so that's exciting too, and put up some ads on their site and that kind of thing. So I'm a big fan of what they do.
Yeah, so BJ from Board Game Gumbo, there was a couple of people that are posting it. It's not coming up on the thing, so I apologize. I can see some comments, but Jason, I'm not sure why it's not coming up for you, and I apologize there. I'll see if I can track him down on the Facebook site and bring him up. BJ from Board Game Gumbo here talking with Jason Bice and Loot the Body. That reminds me, you guys have a Kickstarter. It's it started out today. It's your first Kickstarter from B Team Games, right? Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of advice on Kickstarter. The ones that I've talked to behind the scenes seem to say, listen to Jamie. Jamie Stegmeyer knew what he was doing. He knew how to get in, and then now he's been successful in getting out. What were some of your influences in getting ready for this first Kickstarter project?
Well, I'll tell you what, some of his blogs are extremely helpful. I've definitely taken some time looking at those and going through them, taking a look at, well, how do we build our audience? How do we promote? How do we, how do we get in touch with the blogging community and all those types of things? Because I've told my wife a lot of times, just hanging out on Twitter and Facebook and posting. Sometimes it's kind of like, hey, let's come check my board game. I've got a board game. Come, and there's a whole lot of people shouting for that attention. So there are some great blogs that cover those types of things. Looking a lot of research into other board game designers. I went out of my way to reach out to some other designers and say, okay, well, what are you doing? Travis Hancock with their Tortuga 1667, great game, great campaigns, really, building on their first release Salem, and said, well, what did you do? And so I spent some time one-on-one reaching out to some designers that were kind of trying to do the same thing that I'm, trying to do, and find out, okay, well, what are they doing that's them, and what do we need to do that's B Team Games that kind of takes that momentum and can either, make it us. So that's been my direction.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I always do a little bit of show prep, and when I looked at B Team Games website, I was surprised to see that you had a really cool blog that you started earlier this year, where you were interviewing other upstart companies like yourself that were either into Kickstarter or putting out new products. I've actually played the Tortuga game, and it's a really cool game. We got to play it. Yeah, we got to play it a month or so. The changing alliances between what, are you French? Are you Dutch? Are you British? I don't remember all the details, but we had a really good time doing that. But I was thinking to myself, is Jason doing this for altruistic efforts for journalistic history, or is this research, in an ability to make the best product he can and to give the best thing he can for his customers? Was it a little of both? What was it?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a little bit of both, right? I reached out to them because I had questions, like who I went with logistics. Travis, I straight up asked him. I said, hey, I'm looking at logistics. Like, what are the experiences you've had? I want to be able to give the best experience to whoever my backers are. What has been your experience? So he gave me some recommendations. I kind of followed up on those, and then reached out to some of the other designers and seen, okay, there are some designers I reached out to. I'll be honest, there's some designers I reached out to. I did not publish the blog after talking with them, simply because, one in particular had just kind of a bad interview, and his game did not fund. So I won't go into details about it, but it was, at the same time, it was a great learning experience for, okay, well, here's what they're doing. I talked to them, okay, well, why didn't your game fund the first time? You're looking to fund it again. What was different? And there was a whole bunch of, it was when Exploding Kittens came out, and it was this, that, and we're big believers in hearing the feedback from, whether it's reviewers or play testers. And I'm not interested in blaming somebody else. If we fail, I'm not interested in blaming somebody else. I want to know, okay, well, what can I do to make it better? What's the feedback we can get from other people to make every game is just the most fun that it can possibly be? Because that's the whole point of gaming, is to build community and have fun. And that's what writing blogs was about. It was about being able to build the best game possible, building community, giving something back to these other people, the same type of thing and publicity that, I hope to get from others, and so that we can make a better game and make more community.
All right. I do have a little bone to pick with you, though, following up on what you're saying. I did a little research and I went into the BGG, usually my first spot to see. And you're there, but you're not very active on BGG. I was like that back in 2008 when I really got into a hobby game, and I've been gaming all my life, sort of like the way you described D&D, board games, Magic, all these different type of games. But in 2008, I started playing hobby games, and I didn't even create an account with BGG. It took me like 5 years to finally work up the nerve to get through this really terrible website. Now I like it, but I was curious, why is Jason Bice not so active on BGG? Is it that you don't need to be, from a standpoint there's a thriving community there and you've got other outlets that you're looking at? Or what gives? These, for instance, these interviews you're doing are fantastic. I really enjoyed reading them. It'd be great to see them on BGG.
Yeah. I would say, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there when you mentioned the website. It's a difficult website to jump into, right? They've been around for a long time. They've been doing a great service for a really long time, but they've got a lot of the way their platform is. It's difficult to navigate, especially if you haven't been doing it for a long time. Sure. So I've tried to take the time to read through, well, how do you add games, and how do you add links, and how do you, post your press releases and all those types of things. They don't make it easy. They really don't. The service they provide is fantastic. And I know people that use them for all kinds of things, but man, that interface, I literally have a difficult time just reading it, and focusing on where the different sections are.
I do think that most people come back to BGG after a while because of the wealth of information there. But I am finding that there are so many people that are new to the hobby that are on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and they're getting a lot of their information from those sources and never even making it to BGG at all. So it's a plea from me. I've talked about this on the last 2 or 3 episodes here on Gumbo Live, to make sure that the gamers like us that have some experience in the hobby, that as much as I love BGG and I'm a big supporter of it, I'm there on it every day. We need to make sure that we're on other social media platforms, because there are people out there with questions, the same ones I had back in 2008, the same ones, other friends have had 10 years before that. Simple questions like, hey, have you ever heard of Carcassonne? Is this a game I should try? Right. That's people that need that need a little bit of guidance, need a little friendly chat, need some discussions, pump them up about how many good games are out there. Talk to them about Carcassonne. Talk to them about other games that are out there, and just keep them motivated about the hobby. We can't just think that every single person that plays games is going to just gravitate to BGG, because they don't.
Right. Yeah, and I think in the learning curve that's there, it can definitely kind of be a detriment there, because they have, like you said, they have so much information, so much great information. But the way people are with their, there's an app for everything, and there's a website that's, just click here kind of stuff. There's so much of that now that I think some people get turned away from that. So I think you're right. Social media is huge on it. I think Meetup's really good. Being able to actually meet up with people and do game nights. I've honestly had some talks with some kind of game execs, and I've got a couple of ideas for some other businesses I want to do to kind of meet some of the needs that are there. Because I do think there's a big opportunity for making game nights happen, making building community, and what a role for just a friendly local game store, right? What an opportunity for them to step in and be available to be somewhere for people to ask those questions as well. Because if anyone's going to be knowledgeable, it's going to be those guys right there with games all day long.
Absolutely. They should be the front line of expanding this hobby, and we should support every effort to get them to do that. Hey, BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, Gumbo Live. We've got Jason Bice from B Team Games. Let's talk about Loot the Body. That's a game that's been in development for a while. You feel like it's ready, and you hit go on the Kickstarter. You've had a good start on it today, and I'm sure you're excited about it. Tell me about, how did Loot the Body come about? And I know you mentioned a little bit about it earlier, but how did you flesh that out?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said earlier, I woke up with a large section of the rules in my head, and that's something that happens to me fairly regularly. I like to think about rules, and kind of, if I play a game, well, what might make that game better? So we jumped into it from that point. I made that set of rules and then jumped right into doing some prototypes. I'd say for any game designer, that's always step one. Jump into making a prototype, get something physical so you can go ahead and start seeing what's actually happening. So we went from that and started using some art I found online, on DeviantArt to make some prototypes and use. And we jumped into playing it and testing it over and over. What change is going to make it better? The beholder there. So the artist ended up reaching out to them saying, hey, we've been using your art in our prototype. Would you be interested in being the artist for our game? And I didn't know it at the time, but the guy, he was very interested. He actually is a level designer. I think he was with Ubisoft at the time, and working on level design for different popular video games. And so he jumped on board and gave me a great rate on doing art. So we started doing that, designing the cards and just redesigning them over and over and over until they made a lot more sense. So that's just been our process. We prototype it, we test it, we refine.
Well, we had a good time playing this Sunday with the older version. You've got some changes to it that I liked based on what you described. But that beholder, it liked to kick our butt. I mean, that foresight that you put in there, you don't know how often. We ended up on a bad roll, and I think we rolled 6 times in a row, either a 1 or 6, and we're just throwing cards away, and of course you had the big AC class there, so it was pretty tough to beat that beholder. But it was one of those aha moments that when we finally did take it down, we're high-fiving each other. We're all slapping. So good on you for including that one. I was able to grab some of the art. Let me see if I can get some of this else over here. I was really intrigued with some of the artwork that you had there. Now, some of these are the later editions, I think, because that first one had a lot of, I will tell you, that the one we had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of numbers, a lot of things to calculate. I like the change that you made with the colors and the simplified number system. How did that come about?
Yeah, that honestly, that came directly from feedback from 2 different groups. Married with Board Games and He Said, She Said both did a review of that.
Spence and Laura, right?
Yep. They both did a review of that version of the game. And they had some feedback about kind of the information that was on the cards, and the cards you guys had, they had 2 numbers on them. The monsters had 4 different numbers, and as you can see here, and I've got a beholder here as well. That's the new beholder there.
Oh, nice.
And so his ability is at the top. It's just a symbol. You've got just the health, and everything else is kind of encapsulated with that color. I standardized the the rewards, standardized the attack values based on color, just to keep things simple. And really, one of the things we've been so proud about is the art, right? So we wanted to get rid of all those, and we could really bring the art out and make it a lot bigger. So we made those changes based directly on feedback from reviewers.
I'm a child of the 80s, and look, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I might be way off. But when I saw the art and I started playing, I started thinking Dragon's Lair right away. It's not the same art, obviously, but it's that fun, casual, cartoony style that instantly says, okay, this is not going to be a serious, grim, gruesome dungeon crawl. This is going to have a little take that. It's going to be a little fun. We're going to be cheering each other on and then backstabbing each other. Is that what you were going for? I know you're not. I know it's probably not an homage to Dragon's Lair because I don't know how old you are, but it does have that cartoony feel to it.
Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, going towards families is one of the things that we cared about from the get-go. There's a lot of games that, especially in like the D&D world and things like that, we've got young kids. It can be easy for the art to get scary. And we wanted the art to be evocative of all those, the powerful creature, but not necessarily something that's going to be, dangerous or scary, so that you can sit down and play, play in the dungeon with your kids, right?
Yep.
Very much on purpose.
So I've got the Hydra up there, I think. Is that the right card? Walk me through some of the changes that you've made on the card. It still has the numbers for the heart system, so I'm assuming that's the
that's the health
hit points. Okay,
yep, that's the hit points for the Hydra. So every monster has some number of hit points. Every monster in the deck is actually unique. Nobody has the exact same number of health and poison. So it's not just the art that's unique. It's also the other things go along with them. So that's health. Then we've got the poison icon there. So anytime you attack the Hydra, you actually, if you successfully hit him, he poisons you back for 1 damage. He's a boss monster. So he's got a little extra going on there. Yeah, and so there's one of our early player aid cards. The green background tells us a lot. Essentially, it tells us what cards can be played against it. Green backgrounds are considered weaker, so any card can hit a green monster. So we got rid of the AC system. So we're not dealing with numbers. Green monsters can be hit by anything. Yellow monsters can be hit by anything except your green action cards. And red monsters can only be hit by red and blue cards. So you've got this kind of stoplight, green, yellow, red. They get tougher and tougher. And as you go up, the rewards are all standardized as well. So greens are 1 for everything, yellows are 2 for everything, reds are 3 for everything. Bosses, they get hit like regular cards, but they also give you rewards like red cards, so you get more loot for bosses as well.
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about a lot. Sometimes I'm demoing a game or I'm learning the rules to a game, and I realize right away I love the mechanisms that they put in here. I love the uniqueness. I love the innovation. But why all in the same game? There's a game that I love. It's called Baseball Highlights 2045 by Mike Fitzgerald, and he came out with his first board game. Mike, I've not known Mike. I mean, I've known his games for a long time. I played his little collectible card game Wyvern way back in the early 90s. And when he came out with his first board game at Gen Con this year at Arnor, not too far from where you guys were at Yellow, I got to meet him, shake his hand. He demoed. I said, "Oh my God, this looks great." And then I took it home, and it's complex for complexity's sake. I think a little bit more time with Dragon Island and streamline some of these cool things that were really nice to have, but they didn't all need to be in the same game. And the changes that I'm seeing that you're making from what we played on Sunday to what you're telling me about today, I love everything I've seen so far. I mean, I like the fact that you're streamlining it and keeping the fun aspects there while you're not actually doing mental gymnastics in your head.
Exactly. And that's one of the things we do. So if you look at the version that you guys played versus the current version, the one that will actually go out on Kickstarter, all of the actual physical movements that you do as a player are the exact same movements. You've got a hand of cards, you're playing face down, You're reaching for something, grabbing it, and trying to be fast. Physically, everything's exactly the same. We took out the math. We took out the evens and the odds and things like that, things that cause questions. Okay, well, do we need to put this on both sides of the card so people on both sides of the table can read it? All those types of things. Too much randomization and drawing cards. The game was designed for hand management. So we said, okay, well, let's have a hand of cards, and let's let you manage those cards. And everyone knows what you've got, except for one little bit of variance, right? You've got, I can be more aggressive and have this card, but open myself up to attack, or I can be more defensive and not take as much damage, but I'm not doing as much damage either. So everyone's a little bit unique, especially combined with your special abilities and those types of things. But yeah, it's all about simplification and keeping the fun of the game there, and the basic core game, while streamlining everything that wasn't necessary.
One of the things I think that people like about modern day board games is the fact that, unlike the roll and moves of the 70s and 80s, where everybody had the same, you could pick the dog or you could pick the thimble, but they're really the same.
Mm-hmm.
But in your game, you've addressed the fact that each person wants to be a little bit unique, wants a little bit of that, a tiny little bit of role playing in their game. They might want to be a rogue, or they may want to be a wizard or a cleric. And if I look at this next one here, it looks like you've made some slight changes to the artwork and maybe some changes to the character. Or how much have you changed on the character cards? It looks like, is this the rogue that I've got up there?
Yeah, this is the rogue here. So we did kind of the same thing. We made the art a little bit bigger. We spruced up the background, added some shadows. We've got sliders that go along the side of the card, so you can track your health. And then minimize kind of the size of the text box there, so we can really focus on the art.
Let's see, what's the next one we got here? That is the knight?
Well, it's the paladin. He's the
okay,
paladin.
sure.
Yeah. I believe in the flavor text. He wears armored underoos, which is why he has extra health. He leaves home without his armored underoos. And so his ability is just simply he's tougher, right? But again, it's that flavor. Okay, well, we've got a tank. Someone wants to be tougher. They can be tougher and not deal with all that magic stuff.
Yeah, it looks like Steve. You can't see his comment, but Steve says, "Hey, sounds like your philosophy is chip away, find the essence of the fun, do one or two things really well, get out of fun's way, and let it happen."
Oh, absolutely.
That sounds like the design philosophy of B-Team games.
Absolutely, and especially in Loot the Body. I mean, we designed a couple emotional roller coasters in there. Like, if you look through the rules, like tying is not always great for you if you tie for most damage and things like that. So we built in some things to be emotionally, oh, this is going to happen. I rolled a 20, or oh, I tied, and so I get rewarded, but not as much. Or I rolled a 1, and so there's that up and down, and just a little bit of stress and tension, but it's fun. It's a fun stress. We want people to be active and engaged in what's going on. That's a great, big thing in design right now, as well as board games where people are always engaged are going to be a lot more fun no matter what.
So what are we looking at now? I've got a picture of just one of the many numbered cards in the game. What does this do?
Yeah, so this is an action card, right? So thematically, this is a weapon that your character has on them. Okay, so it's a green card, so it would only hit green monsters. Statistically, there's more green monsters than anybody else. So while they hit fewer cards, you've got more options to play it when you want, when you need to. The number tells us how much damage it does to whatever monster it happens to be.
Did I read that each character is going to have kind of the same set of cards as opposed to just drawing random cards from the deck like we did on Sunday?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, everyone starts with the same set of cards, with the exception of being able to choose one blue card, so that everyone's got, it can either be more aggressive or less aggressive and defensive. And if you're the one person with a shield with that defensive deck in a deck where everyone else is being aggressive, well, everyone else is going to be dying and you're not, and so you're gonna get that advantage. But if everyone's being defensive, it's going to be a little bit slower. It's not as much of an advantage. So there's a little bit of chance in with the cards that you get. But it's about the hand management. You've got to decide, do I want to play this red card on a yellow monster and take 2 loot, or do I want to save it for a red monster and get 3 loot later?
Well, Jason, it looks like you got a fan. Melissa says, I thoroughly enjoyed playing this game. So
awesome.
Not bad. Are you getting that kind of feedback from the Atlanta area, or are you taking it nationwide as you play it out? How did the play testing go? Was it just local or was it nationwide?
So I've done a couple of different things. I've taken it on the road with me as I go to different conventions and do groups of people. I just kind of taught it to different people as we went. I've done a lot of meetups with kind of the local group here. I've got some other groups that I go to at different game stores that are in the area. I'm lucky. I kind of live in the center of about 5 different game stores, and they all have different meetups at different times. So I was able to take it to a lot of different groups and do some, say, hey, here's this game. Let me know what you think, and kind of, do some blind testing and that type of thing. So just all over the place.
Do you have a brain trust that you trust, though? A core set of gamers that it's got to meet that first threshold before it ever sees the light of day.
Oh yes, absolutely. So I've got I mentioned earlier, I do kind of a bi-weekly group get together, and so if I trust what they're working. I've got some friends that work for Weird, and I've got another friend. He's great with games, and he's so good at Board Game Geek. He uses all the features, and so I almost asked him to come on tonight, and because he does a really great job pitching it, and because the dexterity is really. Yeah, it would have been good. He's great with it. He talks about it so well because he's I love playing games, but man, he can really talk about games. He's played a lot. So he's been a great resource. I really trust his judgment. And then playing with when I get a chance to take it to cons, playing with board game people, that it's what they do. When people do something all the time, they've got a good opinion, and I trust people in some places, and I test things out, and if it works, that's great. And trust but verify, right?
Trust but verify. One of my favorite expressions. I love that. Hey, that's Ronald Reagan talking about the Soviet deal. So, Jason, is B Team Games an imprint for you, or is this going to be something where you're going to be looking for shared people for game designers that share your philosophy, and you might want to publish those too?
Yeah, great question. So our business plan is that we're planning to do 3 Kickstarters. And after our 3rd Kickstarter, we're going to, at that point, start looking at bringing in games from other designers that aren't necessarily kind of our core group. We've got those games pretty much mapped out at this point with what they're going to be. They're in different levels of prototyping and testing, so we're ready to move forward with kind of the next steps. But we absolutely want to bring people in. I'm a big believer in fresh talent and giving people a chance to see what they can make.
What do you like to play?
I love strategy. I love being able to. I really enjoy being able to be clever in a game. So anywhere where I can kind of utilize strategy or puzzle things, I really enjoy those. My background is mathematics and aerospace engineering. So anything where I can kind of manipulate the system and kind of see what's going on, I really enjoy those. I'm not a huge fan of party games, but it's
you got to find the right one.
Yeah, you got to find the right one. They can certainly be fun. But yeah, I tend to stay more on the strategy side than on the luck of the draw kind of things, and give people a fighting chance.
I'm lucky with my group, and we will play everything from a nice big meaty Euro to a thematic hybrid or a Ameritrash type game, and then at the end of the night, we'll look at each other and go, "Hey, let's do some New York." A Fake Artist Goes to New York. It's a party game, but it's just a way to, especially after you played a nice brain burning Euro, to just relax and point fingers at everybody and laugh. And I do like party games. If you can give me a big game, and that's why I like the Oink Game packages. If you can give me a big game that'll give me 30 or 40 minutes of fun in a tiny little package, man, I am hooked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you played any of the Oink games at all?
I don't think I have. But you talk about big games and tiny packages. Tell you what, I start thinking about Tiny Epic Quest.
Nice.
Man, that one's, talk about a big game and a small package. They did a great job there.
I've only played 2 of the Tiny Epic games. I played Westerns and Quest. I wasn't a fan of Westerns. I love Tiny Epic Quest. It reminds me of, my wife was so hooked on that Super Nintendo Zelda game. I mean, she just loved it. And I would spend hours while I was doing something else. I would actually watch her play through, and cajole her or help her, or, maybe I wasn't really helping, but I was trying. But playing the game, it actually gave me that same sense of thrill and discovery and sending your little guys around. I think he hit a home run with Tiny Epic Quest.
Oh, absolutely. And in the item meeples, right? What a simple game changer, right? How cool is that? We'll put some holes in the meeples and they can hold stuff. Okay. That's great. So I mean, it's, it's those little ideas that really mix up our, that really mix up the board game community and what's going on in the market, and such a creative space and so different from other industries. I love it.
What's been the best part about getting Loot the Body to where it is now? What's been the best part?
Man, I love seeing people play it. I think you guys talked in your review about the finger pointing and kind of the laughing at each other, and oh, you got a critical hit or you got a critical fail. I tell you what, I played it with a group tonight, and there's a guy, his name's Mac, and he was a big fan of that version too, and we're showing him the new version, and we got through the first one, we're the first monster, first turn, and he grabbed his die, and we're all looking at him. We're saying, roll a one. And he rolled a 1, and he got this critical fail, and he got up and he threw his cards down. He walked off for a second and came back, and, we're making fun of him and having a good time. And I love to see people having a good time, given my family, we always kind of picked on each other a little bit, gave each other a hard time. And I think that's what family groups do when you care about somebody and people are taking care of you and care about you. Board games do that. They give you an opportunity to get to know people, to have that experience. I love seeing those experiences happen.
Hey, there's Steve O'Rourke checking in. Finally got that fixed now. Reposting what didn't show up when he posted on the other Facebook site. The image of the rogue definitely called back to Dragon's Lair. Same cartoony bright colors and clean lines as Dirk the Daring had. So hey, maybe I'm not wrong. There's a little bit of influence there, maybe.
It could be. I mean, my illustrator, he's done all of the character work. He's actually, like I said, I found him and was using his stuff as prototype stuff. And at this point, all of the art is custom for the game, where originally, it was just things he'd already made. So I'm not sure exactly what his influences are there. He's an interesting guy. He's actually in Bulgaria.
Right.
Is where he lives. And he's a lead singer in like a Johnny Cash tribute band. So he's a very interesting guy.
He walks the line.
Yeah, he's a fun guy. So I couldn't really say all of his influences, but I've loved his art from day one. I think it's fun. It really captures the heart of like where the game is. All
right, now you told me about the best part. What's been the toughest part about getting Loot the Body where it is today?
Tell you what, it is the toughest part. Tell you what, honestly, I'd say the financial side of things is really the hardest part, because we're a startup company, so my wife is in charge of kind of the finances for it, and she's a tough cookie when it comes to convincing her. Well, we need to print this many more review copies. It's going to cost us this much. Really got to convince her, because she's way better with, I can design stuff, but she's way better with money than I am, and so I trust her on that. So finding the capital and getting the capital to kind of just get things moving in PR, all of that's been an interesting challenge. I've my big boy job, like we talked about earlier, has always been with where my career is. This is my first kind of entrepreneurial opportunity on my own, and so it's scary, but it's been learning that designing a game and publishing a game is not just making a game. It's I've had to learn video editing, and I've had to learn, okay, well, how do you write a good blog, and how do you set up a website, and how do you do Board Game Geek, and there's a thousand different tasks, and they don't all fall into my favorite part of designing a game, but they're tough, but they're good and they're important.
Well, here on the Gumbo Live, BJ from Board Game Gumbo Live, I've got Jason Bice from B Team Games talking about his Kickstarter project today that launched today, Loot the Body. We always like to finish out every program with a little game we call the Envie Game. That's a word from Louisiana. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, because you are from Shreveport, not from Acadiana. But Envie is a game, is something that you want to do, something you want to buy, something you want to get. You got that hankering for it. So that's why we call it the Envie Game. Don't tell me what it is, but think of a game right now. If you could, doesn't matter if you own it already, doesn't matter if you've played it already, doesn't matter if it's sitting behind there in the collection, which would make it a lot easier if you did. But what's that game that right now, if we shut the computers off and you had time and you had the right people that you want to play with, what game would you play? Now, Steve and I are going to try to guess, so we're going to ask some questions and see if we can figure it out.
All right.
Jason, are you ready to play the Envie Game?
I'm ready.
All right, I'm going to start out with a usual question, so that way I can split it up a little bit. Is it competitive or cooperative?
Cooperative.
Are you a cooperative fan?
I am a big cooperative fan. I think cooperative games are extremely interesting.
I got to teach a friend of mine. I like cooperative games a lot, but I love the games that I call cooperative until they're not. You know, games like Shadows over Camelot or games like that where, yeah, you're working together, and you always got to keep your eye out for that other player to see who's going to break the ranks. Battlestar Galactica is another one. BSG is just, cooperative until it's not. So, all right, so a cooperative game, Steve, that's going to help us out because that's a smaller genre than the competitive, of course.
It is, yeah.
Is it an American design or a European design?
American.
Interesting. Does it have miniatures?
Yes.
And how? It does have minis. Okay. Interesting. Has it come out in the last 3 years? Is it a relatively recent design?
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no on that one.
All right, Steve. So summing up, we got a cooperative game designed by an American designer with minis, but it's older than 3 years.
I think this it's probably a little easier than you're making it.
Oh, really? Okay. Is it Pandemic?
No, it's not Pandemic.
I was going to go right off the bat with the one that's pretty easy. Let's see. So, is it a family weight type of cooperative? In other words, one that can be played in 30 or 40 minutes, or is it a really long game like a BSG or or something like that? Oh, it's a long game. It is. It's over an hour for sure, right?
Oh yeah.
Steve, you got any ideas there? Let's see. Cooperative game, an American designer. Over an hour. Is it by Matt Leacock?
No, nothing by him. He's a funny guy though.
Have you met him?
Oh yeah, I was at one of our events, and he sat down next to me, and he said what his name was. I said, what is that name? What is that? I recognize that. And he goes, I make Pandemic. I said, oh, well, that's why I recognize that.
That's why you recognize that name.
Really nice guy though.
I've heard a lot of interviews with him over the years. I haven't got to meet Matt Leacock yet, but he seems like a good interview and a good guy. So sometime I'd like to ask. Oh, Steve's got a question for you. Is it a fantasy theme?
Yeah.
It is a fantasy theme. A cooperative game with a fantasy theme. I mean, the first one that comes to my mind is Shadows over Camelot, but that's not an American design. That's Bruno.
It's Pandemic-esque.
Pandemic-esque. All right. Is it a firefighting? No, it's a fantasy theme, right? Okay, I was going to say, is it a firefighting theme? That would be it. Oh, man. Feels like I should know this one right off the bat. I'm terrible at my own game. Let's see. Fantasy theme game over an hour. Let's see. Came out. All right. So to recap, it's a cooperative game. It's American. It does have miniatures. I don't think Steve's right on this one because that's still Matt Leacock. It is a Matt Leacock game, so it wouldn't be Forbidden Desert because you said it wasn't Matt Leacock. Oh, yeah, that's right. Hey, thank you, Steve. Steve says not Matt Leacock. Let's see. An American designer. Is it Rob Davio?
I can't think of the designer. I'm not sure. Not sure the designer is off the top of my head.
Yeah, when you say fantasy, what's that?
It's a big box.
It's a big box game. Like Descent?
Well, I do love Descent. I've got that on the top shelf.
Oh yeah.
That's a good one too. You could probably convince me to play that.
Yeah, but we're getting closer with a game like Descent, right?
Yeah, well, same theme, same size box ish. Yeah.
Fantasy cooperative game. Does it have an IP that we would recognize?
I would think so. They've got a lot of expansions, a lot of add-on characters.
Ooh, that is a good hint. Let me think. It's not Cthulhu based, right? When you say fantasy,
No, it's not Cthulhu based.
I mean like
I would
traditional
put that in the noir category. Trying to see if it is behind me or not.
I'm going to hit you solo and see if I can see what's up there. Yeah, Vast is definitely not a cooperative game.
No. It's a good one though.
Like an Arcadia Quest?
Well, Arcadia Quest wouldn't be cooperative. Yeah, I don't know if you can see, I've got a whole shelf of
I see that
Quest over here.
No, because you're really going after each other during the game. I mean, you're actively trying to take out the opponents.
So. You've got some cooperative versions, I guess, but no, it's not Arcadia Quest.
Man. Feels like that's a good hint. So yeah, you have stumped me here, man. That's I thought it'd be easy because once we got to cooperative, oh man, it's what kind of a cooperative game is it? Is it like a dungeon crawl?
It's not a dungeon crawl. No.
Okay. Well, that eliminates a couple of ones.
But same genre.
Same genre, though. It is a dungeon style crawl. Of course, dungeon.
If you mixed a dungeon crawl with Pandemic, you'd be in the right spot.
Whoa! Oh, man, you're blowing my mind there. You mixed. Man. Yeah, Clank is not.
I think I may have found one you haven't played. I don't know.
I know. I wonder if Steve and I haven't played this game. Maybe not. I actually haven't played Arcadia Quest, although our game group has it and does play it. I have not played it. Dustin, if I remember right, Dustin's a big fan of it. And it's got a lot of expansions.
Yep.
It's got a lot of expansions. Oh, man. Is KDM considered cooperative? I mean, it is sort of. But you said it's more than 3 years, so it wouldn't be KDM. God, man, I'm stuck. Steve, you got anything? Because I'm telling you. Let's see. Steve says characters needs to be helping us here. Not sure what he's saying there.
I think he's saying that's a big clue.
Oh. Dave Dugas says Super Dungeon Explorer.
That's also good. That one's also on my shelf.
Nice, Dugas. That I you know what? That's one I should have thought of, and that one does have expansions to it.
It does. It does. But not that one. That's not the one I picked for this game.
See, Dave and Dustin would get this because they know those games. I could text some of the other ones. That's going to be a Cthulhu game, Melissa. Although it's a good, you might not have caught that clue. Elder Sign by Kevin Wilson and Richard Launius, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. For sure, Kevin Wilson. I'm not sure if Richard was involved in that or not, but you said it wasn't Cthulhu based. We're getting closer though. I think not with Elder Sign, but
to drop a little something about Loot the Body here. One of our monster packs. We haven't said this yet, so this is exclusive for you.
Oh,
we are planning to have a Cthulhu based monster pack with
nice
a whole set of Cthulhu, some noir characters and Cthulhu monsters. So it's a stretch goal. So we need some people to unlock it, but it is planned.
So Steve wants to know: is it a Lord of the Rings minis game? There is a cooperative Lord of the Rings game, but that's not the one. That's not what you're talking about, right?
No.
Yeah, it's not Lord of the Rings based. Okay, so it is. So the key element, guys out there, Melissa, Dave, Steve, the key element, it's a dungeon. If you mixed a dungeon crawl with Pandemic, so I'm thinking that the mechanic has something to do with people trying to stamp out stuff as it's coming at us, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So sort of like the goblins in Vast. What's that?
Well, somebody asked if it was cards. Steven was asking if it was cards, but it's not cards.
It's not card based, so it's definitely board based.
Mm-hmm. It's board based, has minis. You've literally described the game at this point.
It's a fantasy. Yeah, exactly. I don't need the title. It's a fantasy-based board game with minis that's cooperative, and it's got stuff that's coming down and trying to attack us. I just can't think of the name of it.
That's a price for release right there.
It is. That's the elevator pitch. Steve, unless you got something, I think we're going to have to let him go because he's going to have to tell us what it is and it's going to kill us because we probably either heard of the game. At least I hope I've heard of this game. Man. Dave Dugas says Massive Darkness. That's not within the last 3 years. I mean, that is within the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that is also in the last year, Melissa. Good try though. The name of that co-op witch game. She's talking about there's a witches game that we've been playing. Witches of the American Revolution. Gloomhaven is in the last year too. Yeah. So
what a great one. That one, I want to play it so bad. I'll never ever convince my wife to play that one.
Yeah, that's one for your game group. All right, unless Dave and Melissa have something, I think that the Gumbo is going to go down and our guest is going to win this one because at least it wasn't the McDonald's game, Steve, because Alex Goldsmith got us with the McDonald's game. I didn't even know there was a McDonald's game, but he totally stumped us on that one. All right, you got one more hint. This will not count for our guest, but you got one more hint that if you told us, we would get it and feel really stupid right now.
Do I need to give you that hint?
No, it's up to you. I mean, this will not count as our guess. You know what I mean? This is you. I'm gonna consider you the winner. It actually
is on the screen.
It's what?
It's actually in the picture.
All right, we're gonna go solo here and see if we can see. Man, I just can't. No, I just can't see all of the ones that you have there. Dave Dugas says it is Super Dungeon Explorer, or it should be. No, it's not Arcadia Quest. I guessed that one about it. And Arcadia Quest would be an amazing game. We just don't have that one yet. Arcadia Quest. Yeah. It'd be all about the Cajuns going in and trying to defeat the alligators. So you got me, Jason. What you got, man?
Defenders of the Realm.
Oh, my God. Defenders of the Realm. Wow. Oh, good one. I haven't played it. You're right. I have not played it. Dustin had it and either traded away or still has it. It's a tough one, he says, to get to the table, unfortunately. Have you found that?
It is. It's big. It's really big. It's got a huge map. It's got a mechanic very similar to Pandemic, where it's not diseases. It's, monsters coming in and spreading. Sure. You have to stomp them out fast enough while accomplishing other things to defeat the Dark One.
That's right, Steve. So. It is an American designer. It's Richard Launius. And in fact, didn't Dustin also bought the new one that came out? They came out with like a Mad Max theme of Defenders of the Realm. Isn't that right?
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Hopefully I'm not mixing the games up, but Launius redid the game and came out. Hopefully I'm getting the right one. But it's a Mad Max theme where the characters, when they get bitten by whatever the zombies are, they actually mutate. You want to mutate because it helps you with your special powers as the zombies, right? Similar to the monsters in Defenders of the Realm. But if you mutate too far, you actually kill your character. So you want to get bit by a zombie, and that way you can grow that third arm, or maybe get a rocket on your head. But you don't want to get bit too much because then you die. So
I'm gonna have to check that out. That sounds fun.
Yeah, Dustin's a big fan. Well, number one, the Gumbo itself, we're big fans of Richard Launius. We love Richard Launius's games. Think the world of him and his designs. In fact, I don't know if you've played Delve. I don't play Carcassonne anymore except on the computer. I like Delve the game much better than Carcassonne because it's got those added mechanics. Have you played Delve yet?
I haven't played it. No.
Check that out. Richard Launius took a Carcassonne mechanic and injected a dungeon dive. So whenever you close out the rooms like you would in a Castles of Mad King Ludwig or a Carcassonne, similar mechanic where you're laying out the tile, you actually, if you're the only person in there, you actually get to go on an adventure. And they've written up all these little scenarios where you meet up with a goblin king, or you save a damsel in distress, or you got a dragon that you have to fight. So it's really pretty cool.
I'm going to have to check that out. Yeah.
Well, Jason, you're the big winner tonight on the Envie Game on Gumbo Live. Congratulations. We really enjoyed having you on the program and learning a little bit more about Loot the Body and about your design philosophies. I want to thank our special guest, Jason Bice of B Team Games, for coming on tonight and talking about Loot the Body. Jason, tell people, how can they reach you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. You can get the easiest way is going to be Twitter. We are at B Team Games. You can also find us on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/Roll Rumble Loot. And you can get to us directly on our website, thebteamgames.com.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for joining in, Steve and Melissa and Dave, trying to help me with the game. Good luck with the Kickstarter for Loot the Body. We'll be watching it out. We'll be talking about it. All right, board gamers, I'm BJ from Board Game Gumbo. It's been another episode of Gumbo Live. And until next time, Jason, laissez le bon temps rouler. Good night.